The day my face ended up on the security desk. I still remember the sound of the tape. A dull, sticky thwack as the security guard pressed my photo against the glass panel beside the elevator. Right below it, in bold red letters, "Do not let her back on the floor." Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. That was how my 6 years at Barton & Hale Industries ended, not with a handshake, not with a goodbye, but with a warning sign. My name was Ava Mitchell, senior financial strategist, and up until that morning, I thought I was irreplaceable. At 9:03 a.m., my email access vanished. By 9:05, my office badge blinked red. By 9:10, my boss's assistant was standing by my desk, holding a cardboard box and whispering, "Mr. Hale says you need to clear out immediately." No explanation. No meeting. Just like that, erased. I could feel the eyes of my coworkers piercing through the glass partitions as I packed the few things that were still mine. My coffee mug, a framed photo of my dog, and a small potted plant I had bought when I first got promoted. 6 years of late nights, weekends, missed birthdays, reduced to a box of junk. When I reached the lobby, the guard avoided eye contact. He mumbled something about protocol. That's when I saw my photo taped beside the desk. I stared at it for a moment. It didn't even look like me anymore. The smiling, confident woman in the picture felt like a stranger. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just said quietly, "Don't worry. I'm leaving." Outside, the cold March wind hit my face, sharp and unforgiving. I stood there on the sidewalk, watching the glass tower of Barton & Hale shimmer under the city sun, a building I helped save from bankruptcy 3 years ago when everyone else had given up. And now, they didn't even want me on the same floor. I took a deep breath, set my box down beside me, and forced a smile. "I guess that's that," I whispered to myself. I went home, made coffee, turned my phone off, and for the first time in years, I just sat in silence. Then, 2 hours later, my phone started buzzing. Once, twice, then 5, 6, 7 times in a row. The screen lit up with a name I hadn't seen since the company's biggest announcement last month. CEO, Patrick Hale. I hesitated, staring at the phone. What could he possibly want from me now? When I finally answered, his voice exploded through the speaker. "Ava, the $300 million merger is OFF." I froze. "What?" "They pulled out," he shouted. "What the hell did you do?" "The partners are furious. They said they won't sign without you. They're on their way to your house to beg you to reconsider. But listen to me, Ava, do not answer the door." The line went dead. For a moment, I just stood there, holding my coffee cup midair, staring at the phone like it had just spoken another language. My photo was taped to the security desk. I was blacklisted. And now, the same people who threw me out like trash were scrambling to fix the fallout. And that's when it hit me. They didn't just fire me, they fired the one person who knew the entire blueprint behind the merger. The woman they thought was disposable was the only one who could save them. I leaned back in my chair, the corners of my lips curling up into the smallest, most dangerous smile. "Do not answer the door," he said. "Oh, Patrick. That door's not the one that's about to close." Because I was about to teach them all what happens when you try to erase someone who built your empire. When Patrick Hale's call ended, I sat in silence for nearly a minute. The ticking of the clock echoed in my living room like a countdown. 2 hours ago, they made sure I couldn't even walk back into the building. Now they were panicking over a deal I helped build from the ground up. I poured myself another cup of coffee and opened my laptop. The company email was gone, of course, but not my personal archives. For years, I had kept backups of my financial models, strategy drafts, and partnership projections, not out of paranoia, but because I never trusted Barton & Hale's upper management to protect my work. And right there, in one of my private folders, was the key to everything. The Meridian merger. A $300 million partnership that would merge Barton & Hale with a global logistics firm called Meridian Dynamics. The deal was supposed to make Patrick Hale a legend in the industry, and it was my models, my forecasts, and my negotiation strategy that had convinced Meridian to even consider it. I remembered every late-night call, every boardroom battle, Meridian CFO, Daniel Ross, had trusted me because I was transparent. I understood their fears, the risk of dilution, the cultural integration challenges. I had crafted a delicate framework that made both sides comfortable. But apparently, someone wanted the credit for themselves. That someone was Rachel Dunn, my replacement. The VP of Strategy. The woman who had smiled at me every morning and called me mentor. The same woman who, I now realized, had been copying my notes and running her own parallel communications with Meridian, until she finally managed to push me out. I checked my email backups again. There it was, a forwarded chain from 2 weeks ago. Rachel had been sending my drafts to the CEO and claiming they were hers. And the last message? Once we finalize the signatures, we can let Ava go. She's too expensive, and we don't need her once the merger is in place. It felt like someone had poured ice water down my spine. 6 years. 6 years of giving everything, and the reward was betrayal from both the CEO and the woman I'd trained. I stared at the monitor for a long moment, my hand trembling slightly. Then I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, "Okay, you took my job. Let's see how you handle what comes next." By mid-afternoon, the calls started again, from unknown numbers this time. I didn't answer. I watched through my window as a sleek black sedan parked outside my house. 3 men in suits stepped out, talking urgently on their phones. Then a woman, Rachel. She looked nervous, pacing by the curb, holding her tablet like it was a life vest. They were really here. I sat back, crossed my legs, and sipped my coffee. For once, silence was my weapon. Inside my mind, the plan was already forming. I had something Barton and Hale didn't: credibility. Meridian's entire trust had been with me, not the company. If I said one word, the entire merger would crumble. I didn't have to fight them publicly. All I had to do was nothing. At 4:15 p.m., my phone buzzed again, this time a text from Patrick himself. "Ava, please pick up. I'll double your severance. We can make this right." I smiled faintly. I didn't want his money. I wanted him to feel what I felt, powerless. So I turned my phone off again and watched the sedan drive away after 30 minutes. But that night, as I sat in the quiet, I started to feel something deeper, not anger anymore, but clarity. They hadn't just underestimated me. They'd erased me. And now, the company was collapsing under the weight of their arrogance. Still, part of me wasn't done. I didn't want them to just lose a deal. I wanted them to understand why. The next morning, I opened my personal email and drafted a message to Daniel Ross at Meridian. Subject: Meridian Merger Proposal. Hi Daniel. I understand there's been some confusion regarding Barton and Hale's current leadership and their handling of the merger terms. I am no longer with the company, but if you need clarification on any of the modeling or ethical issues surrounding the proposal, I'm happy to provide context privately. Ava Mitchell. I stared at the send button for a full minute. Then I clicked it. Whatever came next, I wasn't the one on the defense anymore. For the first time in months, I felt the balance of power shift back, quietly, elegantly, and completely in my favor. And deep down, I knew one thing. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. When I woke up the next morning, my inbox had exploded. 4 emails from Meridian, 2 from Patrick Hale, and 1 from a law firm representing Barton and Hale, marked urgent. The subject lines alone told the story. Clarification on merger data discrepancies. Please confirm your availability today. Confidential legal matter. Non-disclosure enforcement. I sat up, took a long sip of coffee, and scrolled slowly through each one. The email from Meridian CFO, Daniel Ross, was calm but sharp. Ava, thank you for reaching out. We've discovered several inconsistencies between your last approved financial model and the latest version submitted by Barton and Hale. We suspect unauthorized modifications. Could you confirm which projections are authentic? That line hit me like a strike of justice. They'd caught Rachel, and by extension, the entire leadership team, tampering with my data. I took a deep breath, typed a short, precise reply, and hit send. Daniel, my last authorized version is attached. Any subsequent modifications were made without my input or consent. You have my full permission to verify my model against the signed drafts from March 8th. Then I closed the laptop and leaned back, letting the satisfaction wash over me. They'd wanted me gone so badly, but they couldn't make the deal happen without me. By noon, I started getting texts from old coworkers, screenshots, snippets from Slack channels, and internal memos. Apparently, the boardroom was chaos. The merger had been frozen, pending investigation. Rachel was being questioned by the legal department, and Patrick Hale had been spotted storming out of the office, his phone glued to his ear. One of the messages from my old assistant made me laugh out loud. "Girl, your face is on every slide in the boardroom. They're trying to explain why they fired the woman who built the deal." The irony was delicious. They'd humiliated me with a taped photo that said, "Do not let her back on the floor." Now they were standing in that same office, begging for a way to bring me back. That night, my doorbell rang again. I didn't answer. Through the window, I saw Rachel standing on my porch, holding a manila envelope and looking like she hadn't slept. Her mascara was smeared, her blouse wrinkled. She rang twice more, then eventually dropped the envelope on the mat and left. When I finally opened it, I found a handwritten note on company letterhead. "Ava, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. Patrick said we had to make room for new leadership. Please help us fix this. Rachel." I folded it neatly and slid it into a drawer. No anger, no satisfaction, just finality. They had chosen greed over loyalty, and now they were paying the price. The next morning, news broke on Bloomberg Finance. Meridian Dynamics suspends $300 million merger amid ethics concerns at Barton and Hale. The article quoted internal whistleblower data inconsistencies and lack of financial transparency. Within hours, the company's stock price dropped 22%. Investors demanded emergency meetings. Clients began withdrawing their portfolios. Patrick Hale went from Forbes Visionary of the Year to CEO under fire in less than 48 hours. And me? I didn't say a single word publicly. The silence became my brand. Every message I didn't send, every interview I refused, it only made people talk more. But behind that silence, I was working. Quietly, carefully. A few days later, Daniel Ross called again. His tone was different this time, respectful, almost apologetic. "Ava, we know now that you were the real architect behind this merger. Meridian's board would still like to work with you, independently. Would you be open to consulting for us directly?" I smiled to myself. They weren't just walking away from Barton and Hale. They were walking toward me. I agreed to meet under one condition. We keep this completely separate from Barton and Hale. No shared credits. No association. I want clean ground. He agreed instantly. 2 days later, we signed a private consulting contract worth more than my entire annual salary at Barton and Hale for just 3 months of work. By then, Patrick had called me 6 times. No voicemail, no message. Just a name on my missed call list. That weekend, I walked into a coffee shop downtown and overheard 2 analysts from my old company talking in hushed voices. "It's insane. HR says Patrick's stepping down. Rachel's under review for data fraud. And apparently, the whistleblower? They think it's Ava Mitchell." I stirred my latte and smiled slightly. No, I wasn't a whistleblower. I just stopped protecting the people who destroyed me. As I left the cafe, I looked at my reflection in the window, calm, composed, untouchable. 6 years of silence had built their empire. Now, my silence was bringing it down. By Monday morning, Barton and Hale wasn't just in trouble, it was on fire. Every finance site, podcast, and investor chatroom was talking about the collapse. Headlines screamed, $300M deal implodes after analysts' sudden firing. CEO Patrick Hale faces ethics inquiry. Inside the scandal that tanked a merger overnight. I didn't have to say a single word. The world did it for me. My phone buzzed nonstop, LinkedIn requests, journalists, even old classmates who'd ignored me for years. And through it all, Patrick kept calling. I ignored everyone. Then, on Tuesday, my attorney called. His voice was calm, but I could hear the satisfaction behind it. Ava, you might want to sit down for this. Barton and Hale just issued an internal memo. Patrick Hale has resigned. Effective immediately. I froze. Not because I was shocked, but because I had imagined that moment so many times, and now it was real. The man who once told me I was replaceable had been forced to walk out of the company I helped build. That same afternoon, my doorbell rang again. This time, I knew better than to look through the window. But when the knocking didn't stop, I finally checked the security camera. It wasn't Rachel this time. It was Patrick. Standing on my porch, suit wrinkled, tie undone, holding a folder in his hand like a man carrying his own eulogy. My stomach turned. But my mind?
Calm.
He looked directly at the camera and said, Ava, please. Just 5 minutes. We need to talk. 5 minutes. He hadn't given me 5 seconds when he fired me. I didn't open the door. Instead, I watched him pace, frustrated, then finally drop the folder on my porch before leaving. Inside it was a single document, a personal letter.
Ava.
You were right. Rachel and I made a mistake, the biggest of our careers. The merger's dead, our reputation is gone, and now the board wants a full audit. They found the emails. They know who really built this deal.
I'm sorry. For all of it.
Please help me fix what's left. I read it once. Then again. Then I tore it cleanly in half and threw it in the trash. Because this wasn't about fixing things anymore. This was about closure. That evening, I got another call from Daniel Ross, the CFO, at Meridian. His voice was different now, more personal. Ava, the board wants you to know if you hadn't verified the data, we would have signed a deal that would have cost us hundreds of millions. Barton and Hale falsified key metrics. You saved us. I didn't say anything for a moment. I just let that sink in. For years, I'd been the invisible worker, the woman who stayed late, fixed the spreadsheets, prepped the decks, and made other people look smart. Now the world finally knew the truth. By Wednesday, Barton and Hale's offices were crawling with auditors. Rachel's name was trending on LinkedIn for all the wrong reasons. And Patrick's resignation statement was leaked online. I take full responsibility for the company's recent failures and misjudgments in leadership. It was over. But I wasn't done yet. The following week, I walked into Meridian's headquarters as an independent consultant. When I entered the boardroom, the same people who once ignored me now stood up to shake my hand. Ms. Mitchell, the chairman said. We're honored to have you. I smiled politely, sat down, and opened my laptop. The moment I started speaking, walking them through my model, explaining the real structure of the merger, I felt it.
Power.
Not the kind that comes from a title or a paycheck, but the kind that comes from being unbreakable. Halfway through the meeting, Daniel leaned in and whispered, You know, they said you left quietly, but somehow your silence was louder than any scandal we've seen. I couldn't help but smile. That night, I went home, poured a glass of wine, and finally looked at my reflection, not as the fired analyst, not as the victim, but as the woman who turned humiliation into strategy. I'd lost my job, my reputation, and my peace, all in one morning. But what they didn't realize was that firing me wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning. Because sometimes, revenge doesn't need anger. It just needs patience and a flawless memory. The next day, the news dropped that Meridian had officially terminated all relations with Barton and Hale. Their stock plummeted another 18%. Patrick's image was splashed across every business headline, a fallen icon. And me? I was quietly signing a deal worth more than the entire department that fired me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. I felt powerful and free. The storm was finally over. 2 weeks after the merger collapsed, Barton and Hale officially announced bankruptcy restructuring. Rachel's name disappeared from the company website. Patrick's resignation went public, and whispers of an SEC investigation began to circulate through the financial press. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I just watched it unfold, the quiet, inevitable fall of the empire that once told me I didn't belong. My photo was no longer taped to a security desk. Instead, it was on the front page of Business Insight Weekly under the headline, "The Analyst Who Stopped a $300 million Lie." That headline didn't make me proud. It made me reflective. I thought about the woman I was the morning I got fired. Nervous, holding back tears, clutching a cardboard box of personal things as everyone stared. And then I thought about the woman I was now, calm, focused, untouchable. Success hadn't changed me. The truth had freed me. After the dust settled, I moved to Seattle, away from the noise, away from corporate games. I started my own consulting firm, small but clean AM strategies. Within a month, I had more clients than I could handle. Not because I was loud or flashy, but because people trusted me. And trust, I learned, is worth more than any title. One afternoon, as I was packing up my new office, I got a text from an unknown number. "Ava, it's Rachel. I heard you're doing well. I hope you can forgive me someday. I truly am sorry." I stared at the message for a while. Part of me wanted to delete it. Another part, the softer one, wanted to respond. But I didn't. Because forgiveness isn't something you give for someone else. It's something you earn for yourself. Instead, I put my phone away, walked to the window, and watched the Seattle skyline shimmer in the late afternoon light. I smiled. Not the kind that hides pain, but the kind that finally understands peace. Later that week, Daniel Ross from Meridian invited me to a private event, a small dinner for executives and partners. I almost said no, but something told me to go. When I walked into the room, every face turned toward me, the same way they used to in the office, but for a completely different reason now. Daniel stood, glass in hand, and said, "This woman taught us something we all forget. Integrity doesn't need a title, and silence can be the loudest voice in the room." Applause filled the space. I felt my eyes sting for the first time in months. Because in that moment, I realized my revenge wasn't the collapse of Barton and Hale. It wasn't even Patrick's downfall. My real revenge was becoming everything they said I couldn't be, without becoming like them. I left the dinner early and walked through the quiet streets, heels clicking on the pavement. The air was cold, the city lights warm. I passed by a bookstore and saw my reflection in the glass, confident, grounded, free. And for the first time since that morning when they taped my picture to the desk, I whispered to myself, "You made it." Not because I destroyed anyone, but because I finally understood that walking away was my greatest act of power. Months passed, my company grew, and one day, as I sat reviewing a new project, my assistant knocked and handed me an envelope. No return address. Just my name, handwritten. Inside was a short note.
Ava, I'm rebuilding. Slowly.
"I know I don't deserve it, but I wanted to thank you. You were the only one who ever told the truth. Patrick." I folded the letter and placed it in the same drawer where Rachel's apology still rested. Then I closed it, softly, finally. Because revenge isn't about making others hurt. It's about making yourself whole again. That night, I sat by the window with a glass of wine, city lights reflecting off the glass. I thought about everything that had happened, every insult, every late night, every sacrifice. And then, quietly, I whispered the same words Patrick had once used against me. "Consider this your final lesson." Only this time it wasn't about him. It was about me, reminding myself that strength isn't built from power. It's built from pain and what you choose to do with it. And as the lights of Seattle blinked below, I smiled one last time, because in the end, my silence had spoken louder than any revenge could. If you felt that chill of satisfaction when Ava finally got her justice, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Revenge Files for more stories where karma comes full circle. Collision. Every week, we bring you powerful revenge tales that remind us, sometimes, silence is the loudest revenge. Turn on the bell so you never miss the next story drop.